That's okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to reconvene, and just thank you to Tom and Mr. Flores and Anne Marie. You did a great job, both of you, and we appreciate the fact that you're willing to work together. And it's a tough one to deal with. We each have our own individual opinions about the pluses and the minuses. We'll get through this and move something forward that's good for Bruce Township, for your development, and for Anne Marie and her crew. So thank you very much.
I also like to, if I could, just add one more attaboy to Rick Hagelstein. Rick has put a lot of effort into this, and myself, I appreciate the efforts that he did and the information he brought forward.
You're welcome. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. So we are now on item 10B. Joe, bylaws?
Yes, so, okay. Let's see, the bylaws have been kind of knocking around for a little while. We made a few changes. There's a redlined version here. Well, I guess redlined is an expression because it's in black and white, but it changes the amendment date to February 2nd, 2022, because you haven't fully approved the changes to the bylaws. That should be updated to today if you do it tonight. So to be as of May 4th, 2022. But the changes are in Article 3. There's some changes that were made by the township attorney regarding the language around qualified electors, et cetera, to update that to be compliant with state law. And then there was a change. It still said second Wednesday, so that was changed to first Wednesday of the month. I think
What was the first one you pointed out, Joe?
it was in Article 3. So it says.
I got that.
Yeah. So that was just a state law compliance issue, and then,
Then it had to be changed to the first
Right.
Wednesday.
right, and the other one was this changing the second Wednesday to the first Wednesday. So, that's it. You can just adopt that tonight, and we'll change the date at the bottom from February 2nd to May 4th.
Before we do that, I had a question. I know, Joe, we talked about Section 7
Mm-hmm.
in Article 3, or Article, hang on. Article 7, Section 7.
Yeah, let's
Commission
see.
shall require such information. That one.
The planning commission shall require such information. Is the last three sentences there?
Oh, the 60-day time frame?
Yes,
Yeah.
we talked
Yeah.
about that
Yeah, we
before.
did talk about
Do
that.
we want to change that? Because I don't think we enforce it.
Right.
No.
This is an example where we did not enforce it. Right? Because there was a lapse of 6 months. between.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you might look at changing that to 6 months or something, that I think is a time frame that's maybe a little more in line with,
So I would suggest that we make one more modification, that the second sentence from the last, where it says such time limit shall not exceed 180 days from the original request, consistent with the recommendation from our planning consultant.
And then hopefully enforce it if it's not done in 180 days.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah.
that's plenty of time.
So that's in the form of a motion?
That's in the form of a motion to adopt the bylaws with the additional change to,
Can I ask another question? I
Sure.
don't want to.
before I make a motion, I'll let Connie.
I don't want to
discuss.
make this too long. I just have a question about gifts. No member of planning commission may accept gifts in their office. That's just fine. I don't have a problem with that. My question is, the regular board in their, is the planning commission mentioned in their bylaws? Because I know at one time you were kicking back and forth, no gifts, $50 You know what I mean? And are we mentioned in there as planning commission, zoning, everybody in those bylaws?
We don't have bylaws. We were talking,
Whatever it's
we were
called.
talking about
Oh.
adopting an ethics policy.
Ethics code.
Okay,
With one of the items in the ethics policy had to do with gifts.
okay,
We have
I just want
never
it to be-
adopted that yet.
okay. I just wanted it to be consistent,
Yes,
so,
noted
Okay.
that, you're right, we had not come to an agreement on the ethics, and we don't really have that
okay,
stipulation, but yes, that's a good point, Connie.
okay. Well, just
Yeah, we
take
should be
this as it is
consistent.
right now, because I don't have a problem with no gifts, but I just wanted to make sure
Good point.
there weren't two different, okay,
Good point.
okay, you can make your motion.
Okay, I make a motion to adopt the bylaws with one additional change to Article 7, Section 7. The sentence that says, "Such time shall not exceed." Can you guys hear me? Are these working?
I don't think they're working again.
They're off.
Did the recording?
I keep hitting the main button. Okay, so I'll
Keep your
repeat
knees
my
back.
motion. The motion is to accept the bylaws with the changes discussed today, including the one in Article 7, Section 7, sentence before the last, such time shall not exceed 180 days from the original request.
Okay, and I'll second that motion by Tremblay. As stated, Dana, you have that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everyone understand what he's making the motion? And I second the motion. Roll call, Dana?
Yes. Jared Vinson,
Yes.
Connie Chapman.
Yes,
Mike Tremblay.
Yes?
Mandy Barnett,
Yes.
Rick Haggelstein,
Yes.
Randy Cant,
Yes.
Ed Cubits.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
God bless you.
Give Dana a couple minutes to make her notes.
Set.
Ready? Okay, the next one, Joe, is the banquet facility discussion. And I have I'll call it a letter, it's a single sheet of paper from someone who was here but had to leave because of family situation, young children. And so at the appropriate time, I'll read it, but I will leave that up to Joe to get us started.
Right, so the letter he's referring to is from the operator of the business that brought the issue in front of us. When the issue was raised with the township supervisor, he kind of kicked it over to us and said, is this something that's permitted here? And if not, is it something that the planning commission would be interested in looking at? So, looking at the C2 district, the banquet hall was established at a shopping center within that district. The C2 district only permits wedding chapels, banquet halls, and catering facilities with special land use approval, and then only providing that such are in freestanding buildings and
Uh-oh,
not an
keep your
integral
mic.
part of the shopping center. So, this banquet hall, of course, didn't obtain any special land use approval, and it's not in a freestanding building, so it's not in compliance with township ordinances. Typical due process for use established without approval is to require submission of a plan and application for approval. In this instance, that approval couldn't be granted because the freestanding building standard's not met. So that leads to the question, is the freestanding building requirement something we want to keep in the ordinance, or would we be comfortable permitting that special land use in a shopping center? Now, I provided the language that's currently in the ordinance. And we did review banquet hall standards in 7 nearby communities back it was January or February. None had a similar standard. Armada Township had the closest standard, which was an acreage requirement for banquet halls. So we didn't really know what the origin of the standard was. We figured it was likely intended to avoid parking conflicts. This has been on the agenda a couple times, and because of long meetings, has been sort of moved on to subsequent agendas, so it's kind of why it's here again. I provided a little bit of language at the bottom of this memo that would provide some standards for banquet halls that were located in a shopping center. So banquet halls located in multi-tenant shopping centers shall provide adequate parking for the use at maximum occupancy. And this shall be demonstrated on an application for special land use approval by showing the parking required for the rest of the center and the parking provided. Planning Commission and Township Board shall approve a banquet or assembly hall only if they find that the hall can meet the parking requirement without encroaching on the rest of the center's parking spaces. And then I had a kind of an alternative approach where you could consider banquet and assembly halls with a maximum capacity of 40 people or fewer, and then greater than 40 people, and you might permit them a little differently. That was where this was left the last time we discussed it, and I think maybe it would make sense for us to hear that now, and then we can discuss from there.
Okay. The lady, and I talked via phone because I went to the store, and there's a picture floating around, one on this side, one on that side of the front of the door, and it says Romeo Space Rental.
Phone number, yeah.
And I can verify that every time I've gone there, there's not been anybody inside. There's no lighting on and so on, so it's not being used, best I can tell. So anyway, I called the number, and actually what I was thinking when I did was I was going to get a person who says they're trying to rent that place for a different type of business. But it was actually she answered, and I told her about our meeting tonight. And Dana had sent to her a notification saying we're going to be discussing this type of business, and it might be to her benefit to come to it. She explained to me that she was going to come, however, with the accent, the language barrier potentially, that she wanted to type it out and ask me to read it, so that's what I'll do. Again, she had to leave because she has small children. And this is what it says. My unit is 1,092 square feet at 70941 Van Dyke in Orchards Plaza, Bruce Township, Michigan 48065. I plan to open a small business in the township. The space will be equipped with 2 tables, 40 by 7, 20 chairs, 30 inches high, 3 chairs, 40 inches high, 1 couch, 1 coffee table, 4 accent chairs, 2 flower planters, 7 backdrops, 2 strobe lights, and 1 backdrop stand. I would like to run a business of space rental for social meetings, photo shoot, workshops, training classes, virtual working, small events. No food, drink, or catering services. Now, I would like to know which activity I can conduct in the unit. Please let me know so I can open my business as soon as possible and make some money to support my 2 minor kids and pay bills. Sincerely yours, Chow Smith. So that's what she submitted for our knowledge and information.
Did we hear previously that there are sleeping quarters in the building?
That's what I was going to ask, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I asked her about that when she handed me this sheet, and she said that's fine. She doesn't need, she said she's used it, but that she doesn't, she said just let her know what she can do and cross off the rest, and she's happy to.
Yeah, and I had specifically also asked her, has there been any overnight stays, or would there be? And she said no.
Well, there were 2 reviews
Right.
on this, so evidently somebody stayed there.
Mhm.
But I was hoping the whole point was she was supposed to be here tonight so we could ask her just exactly what are your intentions. That was part of the reason why it was brought back this month, because we were supposed to talk to her and whatever. And evidently somebody has stayed there. Because there's 2,
That was on Trivago,
yeah,
Airbnb?
Yeah, these are the papers I had last month.
Yes.
So with 2 reviews, evidently someone has stayed here.
And it was called Romeo? Rental?
Romeo Space
Romeo
is what
Space.
her,
It says studio for traveling workers.
sure, that's in black and white if you want. That's. And it specifically spells out what she has in there, the chairs, the tables. And there's another picture of the inside. So I don't know. I thought that was the whole point, so we could talk to her tonight in person to see what she had.
Right. So Joe, for the work you've been doing, realizing this lady is not here,
Yeah, I mean, the memo you have in front of you really kind of generically addresses the use, rather than her specific business. So there's, I guess, 2 issues. There's the issue of what's in our ordinance and
Right.
are we interested in changing that, for any example of that use. And then the other is this business specifically, which, you know, appears to have been, at least at some point, multifaceted. And some of what was being done there clearly just is not permitted in the district. But,
Well, and I believe it's been operating for more than a year, and she is still advertising, not as a B&B, as a apartment / room for rent, whatever.
right.
So,
yeah, I had nothing that I could show her when she came here, right?
to say,
To
yeah, this
say-
is what you advertised,
Right.
whatever,
So as a planning commission, we're not in charge of enforcement of our ordinances. But
Yes.
I think step 1 is, this was brought to our attention with respect to our ordinance. We should address the ordinance. And then specifically, if there's a violation of that ordinance, then the ordinance enforcement officer should get engaged.
Right.
We can
Okay.
argue whether he should have been engaged earlier or not, or should they be open or not. But I don't think that's our place to do that here.
So, I mean,
So I would say,
ultimately,
let's focus on the ordinance here. Let's get it ironed out to what we think it should be, and then we can address,
as
have
far
the
as the
township
banquet
address.
hall
Yeah, we can have the
deal, and then,
ordinance enforcer get engaged if there's a violation from that.
and ultimately, if the planning commission, followed by the board, makes a decision to change the ordinance such that this use can be accommodated within a shopping center, then she has to come in for special land use.
Correct.
For her use. If the planning commission decides, no, we're not going to change our ordinance, we're happy with what we have, then her use is not permitted and it has to end. So I guess that's the ultimate enforcement implication of what we're doing. Even though we're not responsible for enforcement, what we do has downstream effects, right? So, I guess that's the question, for the planning commission is that a change you're interested in making? And if it is a change you're interested in making, is the language I've provided the way you want to do it? If so, you know, do you want any adjustments to that, or, you know, a public hearing obviously would be the next step if you're interested in adopting what's in front of you.
I have a question, Joe,
Mhm.
regarding your language. I think you addressed 2 approaches.
Right.
the first approach is just to make it just any banquet facility, with regardless of how many people it holds.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be, any banquet facility would be able to go into a space in a shopping center. However, it would have to ensure that parking for that banquet facility plus parking for every other use in the facility is available on site.
So my question is, how do we determine adequate parking?
Well, they're gonna have to show the requirement for the entire center and for their use.
The applicant would have to do that?
Yeah, they would have, that would be part of their special land use approval. They'd
Okay.
have to look at the square footage of the entire facility.
Well, that's another question I
Shows
had.
parking.
Has anyone asked the other businesses in there their opinion? Do you have to have a public hearing to ask their opinion? If they think there's enough parking, or
No, they
if
could
it's a
certainly
good
be
idea,
asked.
bad idea?
Yeah, they could be asked. I mean,
But it would have to be based on a calculation, right? I mean,
yeah, what they would show
determining the
would
number
be
of
based
spots
on-
based on the business and the size of the parking lot and
Right,
the
exactly.
use.
What the restaurant requires, what the party store requires, and
Yeah, so you look at your shopping center parking requirement and say, the shopping center exclusive of the space that's going to be used as the banquet facility needs this many spaces. The banquet facility needs this many spaces. On the site, there are X spaces. If the banquet facility wants to go in there, they have to find a way to add, 12 spaces or whatever to get to the overall requirement for the banquet facility plus the rest of the shopping center.
So we would also have to then have a parking requirement for banquet facilities? Do we
Yeah.
already have that, or is it?
Let me
would that
see
need to
what's
be
in
defined?
there already.
Is it for the facility or in total? Or is it just that one store? Because at some point, there was an ice cream parlor there originally,
Mhm.
as I recall, years ago.
yeah, different needs for different types of businesses or
And so
whatever,
that was a drive-in, walk inside, get your dessert and head home. I can't recall if there were tables in there, but I think it was more of a in and out. This would be more
Quick
of
call.
in, and I'm there potentially all day if I'm using it as a workspace.
Like a training
conducting
facility
a
or
meeting,
something,
doing
yeah.
training. So it's going to be difficult to deal with.
Yeah, so we have a parking requirement for assembly halls without fixed seats. I'm looking for anything else that pertains to banquet facilities. And that's based on maximum occupancy, that parking requirement. So it's one space for each two persons allowed within the maximum occupancy. And I don't think we have any other standards. That's the standard that would apply at the moment.
Well,
So
in
are you
this
saying if
document-
her capacity, what did I hear, 53? That means
27?
Yeah, 27.
27
parking
spots?
spaces.
Is that
Yeah.
the way you,
Mhm. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
not
she's
gonna-
allowing for, in the write-up, 20 chairs. So theoretically, I guess that's 20 people, or,
Well, the maximum occupancy is 53,
was
so it would be,
50?
Yeah.
Right.
that's
yeah.
how you get
So
to
you
27.
would base it on the maximum occupancy.
okay.
So you'd be looking at 27 in the case of that use.
So 27 spots, and then your biggest user would probably be Times Square. Then you have the party store, then there's a hair salon in there, and then there's another restaurant?
Yeah, there's a Thai restaurant.
Thai restaurant or
Thai
something there
restaurant.
too, so.
And there's I think it was
And
a nail place
Yeah,
right next
Massage.
door.
Yeah,
It's
salon
vacant.
or whatever. Oh, it's vacant now?
Yeah.
Okay.
well, I think we keep focusing on this one facility,
Right.
but I think we need to figure out how do you calculate this in any type of shopping center?
Well, and if we want that.
And if we want that, correct.
Yeah, if we want that is the first question. And then,
Yeah.
Joe,
It's a
did you
matter
say
of-
other areas have this in their rules?
No, I haven't found a similar standard to this in anybody else's ordinance. The one that had the closest thing to a similar standard was Armada Township, which has an acreage requirement for banquet facilities. Strictly speaking, that wouldn't necessarily preclude it being part of a larger development, but it would still have to have enough acreage devoted just to that one use
The
to qualify.
The reason we pursued this, just for the sake of Mandy and Randy, is that we found that we weren't consistent, that we, by only allowing standalone facilities, we were the oddball amongst all the communities.
Right, yeah, it's a standard that Bruce has that we couldn't find another
Right.
community that had the standard.
So if we were to say that we like your language, Joe, that the right thing would do to be set up for a public hearing?
Yeah,
Correct.
if the planning commission was
If
comfortable.
the planning
with what
commission
we
were to
got
do that,
here,
and then
yeah.
we would have that public hearing and then vote on the ordinance, and if we approve the ordinance, it would go to the board. Correct?
That's right, yep.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we accept the language as Joe has presented on number 1. And move that we have a public hearing at our June meeting to get input from the public before we vote on the particular language.
Motion's been made by Mike. Do I hear a second? I'll second the motion. Dana, you have that captured?
Yes.
Everyone, or does anyone have any questions?
In the meantime, do you let the gal know that it's gonna be up next month and really she should be here to?
Oh, yeah.
To be honest with you, I would give her the advice that she needs to have someone else represent her.
Just so someone does,
Yes.
whether it's her.
Her or someone with her.
If there's questions or whatever, yes, she should be in attendance.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ready for the roll call?
Yes, roll call, please.
Jared Vinson,
Yes.
Connie Chapman,
Yes.
Mike Tremblay,
Yes.
Ed Cupits,
Yes.
Andy Barnett,
Yes.
Oops.
She said yes.
oh, Rick Hagelstein,
Yes.
and Randy Can.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimous.
Sounded
Okay,
like
Joe, next one, roadside stands.
Yes, roadside stands. Navigate to that memo.
Now, was this triggered by the one petitioner we had wanting to do a roadside stand, or was this already in motion?
No, it was triggered by that.
Triggered
That
by
was the thing that
Yes.
brought it up. That was the
Okay.
thing that brought it up, yeah. I have like 20 documents for 156 Westgate's open right now, so I'm closing
Yeah.
them all to get to the thing that I'm looking for. Okay, so yes. Right, so in this memo, I've included the current language that pertains to roadside stands in the ordinance. And one of the things that I noticed when I was looking into it is that we have one part of the ordinance that says it's exempt from site plan approval, and another part of the ordinance that says it's a special land use, which requires a site plan approval. So obviously, those two things don't agree with each other. So that, at a minimum, we have to sort that out. Even if we change nothing else, we should definitely sort that out. Back in January, there was general agreement that a site plan should be required for roadside stands. So part of this is altering paragraph 6.1 C, we have a sentence in there that says it pertains to site plan, when a site plan is required. We have a sentence in there that says this section does not apply to the erection or structural alteration of single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, principally or permitted roadside stand or accessory buildings, and required motor vehicle parking areas, et cetera. I've redlined it by taking out the roadside stand portion and noting principally permitted accessory buildings, which would kind of distinguish those buildings from buildings that are permitted with special land uses. So a special land use would still require the site plan because all special land uses require a site plan. So we're not, with that adjustment to the language, we would no longer be listing something that's permitted as a special land use in the ordinance as something that doesn't need site plan approval. We would be eliminating that conflict there. And then we looked at standards for roadside stands, and I actually modified this after the last meeting because there were some suggestions that were made by planning commissioners at the last meeting, and I incorporated those in so that the whole planning commission can see those suggestions. So what we wound up with is this section 4.XX, roadside stands. Special land uses in the RS and R1 districts, subject to the following. So we have a 5-acre minimum.
Joe, I got a question for you. Are there R1 districts that are 5 acres?
We have 5-acre parcels in R1 districts. The R1 district minimum lot size is.
Okay, so regardless, it's going to be 5 acres. It's going to be a requirement regarding it.
Yeah, there's a 2-acre minimum in the R1 district, but you need 5 acres to do a stand.
5 acres regardless. That's my
Yeah,
question.
exactly, yeah. Yeah, you could
Okay.
only do it if you have 5 acres or more.
Thank you.
Joe, before you go any further, when we go back to the first paragraph
Yeah.
on 6.1C,
Mm-hmm.
you said you delete a roadside stand, but further on it says roadside stands on individual lots.
Oh, yeah.
Did you miss that?
It's supposed to be struck.
Okay. So the sentence should end at or two-family dwellings, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess the strikeout didn't carry over to the PDF.
Another thing you call, okay, roadside stands, we also talk about farm markets. Same thing, 2 different items. Do we need to put roadside stands / farm market? Or, you see both titles, so.
Right. I think a farm market is something of a different,
You think it's different? Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Fact, hang on 1 second.
Just trying to clarify, that's all.
Yeah. Let's see. So, the next set of standards talks about setbacks, not located in a right-of-way, of course, but should there be some kind of setback? We've got a 35-foot separation standard from any neighboring property on the same side of the street here, but, so just sort of keep it in the middle of the property. But as far as setback from the right-of-way, do we want to establish a setback from the right-of-way? I mean, typically they're closer than what the setback normally is.
What have you seen in other communities? Do they have a setback in addition to the right-of-way?
I don't see much of that in other communities, no. So it's sort of a matter of what you're comfortable with.
Wouldn't you want a certain setback because people park in the front? I'm thinking of George's at 35.
He set back a lot.
He's set back a lot, but I mean, he needs it for parking. But I mean,
Sure.
you would have to, you would want a setback for the safety of vehicles in and out.
What are you thinking?
I don't know what it should be. Maybe they're not all gonna be as big as George, but,
No.
Yeah.
He's not really a roadside stand.
You're
well, that's what I
required.
said.
Yeah.
Are these roadside stand, farm market? Do you need to clarify the two different things, or are they together? I mean, that's, because you see both terminologies, so. But even if it's just a little stand, you want a setback. You don't want them out by the road. For the safety of vehicles and people that would be there. I don't know what the right number should be, but you want a setback.
It also needs to be visible, right? So a roadside stand, half of their business is gonna be people that are driving by and see it. I just think of the stands that sell the eggs, and they're usually really close. One person might pull in the driveway, grab the eggs or whatever they're selling, and then leave. You don't necessarily have a line of cars waiting to go and do something. Because I think there's a big difference between a big farm market and a little roadside stand.
But we've got to cover everyone.
Yeah.
I-
For
I-
s- For
Can they be
safety,
grouped together?
for safety, they would be better to have more of a setback to get off the road and whatever, even if only one car pulls in at a time. I don't know, like I
Well,
said.
the
I
right
don't
of way,
know.
the right of way gives you space off the road, but is that enough space? That's really the question.
Yeah, because, the edge of the right-of-way is never the edge of the
Right,
road.
right.
Um,
I would be willing to put some kind of additional setback in addition to the right of way. I don't know what that number should be, but.
Oh, I was gonna say, okay, give me a number.
All right, I'll throw a number out, 10 feet.
Yeah, 10 or 15, whatever.
I can go with 15. I
Yeah.
can be convinced.
I think for safety, there should be a little setback.
How about 15, Joe?
okay. Let's see, just a parking area so that vehicles won't have to park on the street. Adequate maneuvering space, so that they don't have to back onto the street when exiting. I think it's especially important if you're on a mile road.
Yes.
Roadside stands shall not operate between the hours of 9 PM and 7 AM, which is pretty consistent with other.
I don't think they really need to open at 7 AM. How about 8? I think 7's too early.
How did you come up with 7?
That's, I think I drew that from a noise ordinance.
Yeah, when you have contractors come in, mow your lawn, whatever, they're not supposed to be in a neighborhood before 7 in the morning, so they don't disturb
Right.
people, but I don't think a roadside stand needs to open at 7. I'd rather have it 8.
How's the rest of
I
the
play
commission
devil's
feel about
advocate,
that?
why not 9?
Yeah, that's
How
fine.
do you come to 8?
I mean, I keep using George's as an example. I don't know what time they open. I mean, I know it's not 7.
I'm okay with 8, I just wanted to ask.
I'm okay with 8 or 9. I don't-
Devil's advocate, and put it that way.
I'm good with 8.
Challenge it.
I'm good with 8 or 9, either one makes no difference, but 7's too early.
I agree.
And then I think they shouldn't go past 8 in the evening.
And that's determined by, it's an outside
Before it gets
stand.
dark.
Well, before it gets dark and,
Yeah, in case someone questions, challenges, that's the answer. Close them before it gets dark. And of course, later in the year, it gets dark earlier, but,
I mean, that's 12 hours, 8 to 8,
yeah.
so it works for me.
What about months of the year? Or do we just let that be the natural course of?
Whatever seasonal item they're
Yeah.
selling.
I mean, you might have some that are open 2 months because that's their product.
Right.
And then you might have some that are open
I mean,
almost
yeah.
all year because they rotate.
What about Christmas tree lots?
Yeah. That's
That's not really a roadside stand,
probably
though.
gonna be more like an open air business kind of
Yeah.
thing, yeah. Might be like a temporary use.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know that a time of year, I mean, winter's probably gonna preclude
I would think it'd be seasonal.
operations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a little standard about lighting, not creating glare on neighboring properties or rights of way, and turned off during, outside of operating hours. Not established within a platted subdivision or approved site condominium.
We say within a platted subdivision or approved site committee. Could we embellish that a little bit more and say roadside stand should not be established within, and put some kind of distance from a platted subdivision or a condominium?
What if you have a platted sub or condominium whose entrance is across the street from a 40-acre farm?
Okay, point taken. I mean, it still requires a special land use, so we could always look at what is the situation.
Surroundings.
Yeah,
Right.
and decide each one individually.
The 50% of products raised on site standard is, that's standard. And then just some submission requirements.
Yes.
We're not requiring like an engineered site plan, it's,
Mm-hmm.
Can I make a comment while you guys are talking about something important, maybe Joe knows this? Can I make a comment, just to help you guys along?
Brief one.
Yeah. The Right to Farm Act preempts special land uses, and underneath the Right to Farm Act, I got a document here that roadside stands would fall underneath that. You just need to do your homework on that. I mean, I have it right here, it's underneath the Right to Farm Act. Roadside stand, farmers markets, corn mazes, shooting ranges, and of course, horse places. That's underneath the Right to Farm Act.
Joe, if I'm not mistaken, the Right to Farm Act, if it's a farm, would not be subject to this, correct?
That's correct.
I'm asking you
yeah,
that question.
like a large farm can establish something like this, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right.
This is covering other instances. Yeah, he's correct, there's some preemption, yeah.
Right.
Is this a large farm or a little farm? What's the size?
It's back over here, sorry.
Well, I mean, it's an established farm, right? It's not,
Yeah.
I don't, there's not an acreage
I
standard.
can answer your question. You an established farm. you have-
Sir?
okay.
Sir, if you want to have the conversation, please do it outside.
I was just trying to help.
Well,
Okay.
it's back up
I'll
here.
be up next and we'll talk about it.
That's fine.
Application.
That's it, I'm through the
That's
draft,
everything.
so.
And then the requirements for the special land use then are,
Yeah, just some
Yep.
submission requirements.
so similar to the last one, would this follow that, we would approve Joe to make the changes that we recommended today. Did you capture all those, Joe?
Yeah.
First and 6(1)C, then the 15 feet in addition to the right-of-way, and then the hours of operation.
And I can check preemption too, through the township attorney.
So I would make a motion that
Do we have to have a public hearing to
we do.
change this?
Yeah,
We
Okay.
do. My motion would be that we set up a public hearing for June meeting regarding roadside stand ordinance changes with the changes that the Planning Commission recommended today.
I'll second.
Motion by Tremblay to set up the meeting, seconded by Connie Chapman. Dana, would you call the roll, please?
Jared Vincent,
Yes.
Ed Cupits.
Yes.
Connie Chapman.
Yes.
Mike Tremblay,
Yes.
Andy Barnett,
Yes.
Randy Cant,
Yes.
Rick Hagelstein.
Should I vote? I didn't hear the motion.
You can pass.
Okay,
Just say yes.
Fine, yes.
Okay. Motion passed, we did take a roll. Okay, 5G technology, Joe?
We have nothing on that tonight.
Nothing on that?
Nothing new.
Thank you.
Tree preservation ordinance?
Do you want to discuss this one tonight?
It's up to you, I guess.
I had the discussion I had,
9:45.
the discussion I had was a series of questions to establish goals.
I move that we push the tree preservation to the June meeting.
That's a
you.
motion, I'll second it. We'll do that by acclamation.
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
New business, election of vice chairman.
So we added the
Give
lavender
G.
farm?
10G, the
10G.
lavender.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Lavender farm.
sorry, I missed
Yep,
that one.
there we go.
We can't deny Nick this
I
time
made-
of the sun.
Finally come up and introduce myself?
It's all yours,
Yep.
sir.
All right.
You don't need an introduction.
Okay, well,
Name and address.
Nick Batsakoris, 80800 Van Dyke, Romeo Lavender Farm. I'm the owner. And hi, board, or planning commission members, and welcome new planning commission members. Welcome to our community. Okay, so, you know, I'm going to talk about Bruce Township. You know, Bruce Township is known as a farming community, right? I mean, you're priding yourself on being a farming community. It's been that way for a long time. You like to preserve the farmland in Bruce Township. That's in your ordinance, and you really support the farmers, and we really appreciate that. Okay, so you know there is something called a General Accepted Agricultural Management Practices, which is called GAMS. I'm going to be referring to that, GAMS, but that is what that is. That falls underneath the Right to Farm Act. Underneath GAMS, there are many different areas which covers GAMS. A lot of it is nuisances. A lot of it is farmers markets, roadside stands. There's a whole bunch of them that covers this. So and again, I'm taking this right from the Michigan government and the Right to Farm Act. So what are GAMS? Okay. GAMS, they're generally accepted agriculture and management practices, are guidelines adopted and renewed annually by the Department of Agricultural and Rural Development. This was done because farmers like me, especially in the last probably 10,
Sorry.
farmers like me, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, have realized that the traditional farming has to change for us to survive. Many of us have taken on agricultural tourism, And many of us have sold other products on their farms that are not considered traditional farming products. So there's been some pretty smart people in Lansing who adopted these laws. So that's kind of how this thing came about, is to protect farmers, to help them make a living so they can preserve their farmland so that it doesn't turn into, you know, a bunch of McDonald's. Okay, so what GAMS does, how it protects us, it is a protection from private nuisance lawsuits, which Connie, I'm sure, you know, knows about because she's a big farmer. It is also exempt from local ordinances, such as special land uses, permits to do what a farmer needs to do, and other things. Not everything, but it does cover a lot of things, okay? One of the issues that many local townships have a problem with is the livestock and farmers markets, and that's why GAMS was created, to just kind of have a clarity. But it's important to understand that the Right to Farm Act does exempt local ordinances. So the farmers market, in my particular situation, I am a farmers market underneath the definition of GAMS, and I'll read this to you. It says, most local ordinances allows farmers markets, but many of the ordinances are probably not compliant with GAMS. GAMS defines a farmer's market as a place, this is very important, where 50% of the products by retail space or gross sales are grown on the location. I'll repeat that again. By retail space or gross sales. In my particular situation, I have 17 acres. 10 of the acres has lavender, wildflowers, and sunflowers. And GAMS says there is no restrictions on what other products may be sold as long as you are 50% compliant. So the sheds that I have on my property, which I'll go into, is not even close to that. According to what I'm reading this ordinance, I could have 4.9 acres of sheds on that property, which would be, I don't know, 300-400 sheds. But I'm not here to do that. I love my lavender farm. That's my primary goal. I'm going to keep it a lavender farm. That's where the people come up, they enjoy themselves, they smile, they take pictures. I made a beautiful area. Now, there's some other provisions in there too. A farmer's market definition. A farmer's market definition, according to GAMS, a farmer's market is a year-round or seasonal location where transactions, marketing, activities between a farmer's market operator and customers take place. That's commercial. That's exactly what that is. That's what a farmer's market is. It does not have to be a location. It does not have to be a physical structure such as a building. In my situation, I have 10 acres of the lavender. People come out to my farm and pick the lavender. I do not have a location where people come and my lavender is readily available for them in a certain area. My retail space is the whole 10 acres, according to what I'm reading. That's where people have to go out there, they pick their flowers. It's just like you going to Walmart's or anybody going to a big retail store and they go down the aisles and they pick what they want. So, let me see if there's anything else in here. I think that's it. I just wanted to kind of let you guys know about the Right to Farm Act. My son, who is an attorney, has read your ordinances, and I have read your ordinances, and he has also read the Right to Farm Act. And I'm in agreement with him. He says you are in compliance. Your own ordinance even says a farm can do agritourism as long as he sells 50% of what he grows. But it's not as specific as GAMS. GAMS specifically says there's no restriction on what other products can be sold. Where I do fall underneath your ordinance is that the sheds can be used for lavender to dry. Lavender for drying is a product that falls underneath your ordinance 100%. So I just want to clarify everything, and I will talk about something a little bit personal. I understand what your guys' concerns are, even though I believe I'm 100% compliant, because I am a township resident, and I love the township, and I understand what you guys have to go through. Part of me says, Nick, go get it zoned commercial. But I understand that's not gonna happen, because you guys are voted in to keep things rural, and you don't wanna change your ordinances. And I understand that, even though some other people are in there, but I completely understand that. So that's not my goal. My goal is to survive. It's my first year in business. People love coming out there, and I've given you enough, I don't know, ammunition or teeth to say, yeah, you know, Nick, just don't put 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 sheds on there. You know, we should be okay. And just let me go about my business and being a farmer. But I'm not here for a special land use. I'm exempt from that, underneath the farmer's market, underneath the GAMS. I'm not here to change any ordinances. I was just told to come here because there were some rumblings about my farm. I hope you guys can appreciate the hard work I've done. We farmers bust our backs to make a living.
We first had this conversation through a Zoom call, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, at that time, I was not aware of the, some of the Right to Farm acts.
Right.
And quite frankly, you know, they were talking about this, that, and the other thing. Oh, and there's, you know, so I just was kind of like, you know, and then I talked to some people privately, and they said, Nick, go ahead and do it, because there's other people doing it. So I did it, but again, but after reading what I'm reading, I'm in compliance. But I don't want to push the envelope is what I'm getting at, even though apparently I have the legal right to.
And to go back to that meeting, just for folks that weren't part of that meeting, Mike was. I don't know if you were.
I don't recall it.
I've got an excerpt of the minutes
Okay,
that I'd like to read,
okay,
and then ask advice from Joe.
that's fine.
So it was under public comment at the January 13th, 2021 meeting. Nick, you were there at that meeting.
Yeah, it was a Zoom meeting.
Because you spoke about it, the Lavender Farm on Boardman Road.
Yeah.
It says, he wants to do retail and wholesale of the lavender. His idea is to put Amish storage buildings on the property, drive the lavender. If someone wants to buy these buildings, he would like to be able to do that. He would like to put 16 buildings on this property, each built roughly 120 square feet. Planner Tangari spoke and said that this farm is in the RS zoning district. The sale of these buildings is where this starts to tip towards commercial use. We are not looking for a shed dealership on this property. However, he can have buildings on the site that he is using agriculturally. 4.4 is the new ordinance section that speaks to this issue. The township attorney should be consulted if this is pursued. Commissioner Walker spoke and said, currently we let others do this, but without a left turn lane or deceleration lane, it can be dangerous. Nick indicated that he would just continue to do his lavender as he is.
So why did that change? Because I spoke to a few people, and they said, Nick, you should do it.
Okay, so let me.
And honestly, you know, I thought I had to go through a special land use and all that, but then I found out that I don't, because I'm covered underneath the Right to Farm
Yeah.
Act. So a lot of things have happened since then, and then I was told by the township supervisor, you know, you're fine, just don't turn it into the, you know, the biggest, you know, shed dealership, you know, in Michigan. And I don't want to do that. Like I said, I want to concentrate on the lavender business.
Yeah, I think the issue that came to us is that
There's too many buildings there, I get that.
where does it tip over to commercial? So let me ask Joe now, your
Well,
observation of.
Everything's commercial. I'm a commercial business. I'm agritourism, I'm commercial. I have 1,000 more people that come to my lavender farm than for the sheds. You know how many sheds I sold off my lot last year?
I asked the planning
Okay,
commission.
I just want to let you know, I
consultant.
sold 3 sheds off my lot last year.
I appreciate all that,
Okay.
but I did ask the consultant
Okay,
to
all right.
speak, please, thank you.
Okay.
And I know you're passionate about this. Go ahead.
Right, so, I think this was said back when we had the original conversation, which I think was, it's a couple years ago now. You know, any building that's on the site that's being used for agricultural purposes, obviously, if he's drying lavender in there, it's being used for agricultural purposes, and it's 100% okay for him to have that building on the site. These buildings are actually small enough that even if they were not agricultural buildings, they're small enough not to even require a building permit, because they're 120 square foot sheds. So, you know, as far as if the township has a question as to whether or not right to farm truly covers the activity, I think that's truly a question for the township attorney. It's not really something that I think we can answer in a meeting like this. You know, I don't know how many sheds are on the site right now. If they're all being used for agricultural purposes, I don't know that it even matters.
I think the point of consternation, at least with the supervisor, because he did talk to me, is that the buildings are advertised for sale.
Mm-hmm.
They may be used for agricultural purposes, but I think that's where the gray area hits,
Mm-hmm.
They're
hits the,
advertised through social media.
Through social media, not through signage on the
no
site.
signage on the property too that they're for sale.
Here's the sign.
Yeah, but again, it kind of states in here that,
Well, hang on, we're having a discussion here. We'll
Oh.
give you a chance to
I can
talk.
show you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the
Thought
Right
I
to
answered.
Farm Act
Here's the
grants any
building.
exceptions to a local sign ordinance. And that's the row of sheds there.
Yeah, I don't know if the sign is out of line, but it's just, the intent is to sell the sheds.
Sure, right. Yeah, I think that that's something your attorney needs to weigh in on. Is that activity covered under Right to Farm?
So Dana, as planning and zoning coordinator, reporting to the planning and zoning administrator, who's also our code enforcement, and could you provide him with that direction?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nick.
well, again, I think the Right to Farm Act, you know, I can save you some expenses, and I don't really know why you guys want to go down that route. I'd like to hear why, because there's a lot of other people that are not in compliant, that are selling, that are farms that are selling other things. You know, why is Nick being pointed out? I built a beautiful lavender farm, but to answer your question, it clearly states it says many ordinances require products to be grown on a location on the farm and the farmer's market. Also, there is no requirement that the farmer's market be operated on a seasonal basis. That's not the issue. And no restriction on what other products may be sold. I think I just explained to you guys that us farmers, we need to sell products to survive. Sometimes not traditional. You guys are a farming community. I think, be honest with you, I think you guys, I'm willing to work with you, but my son is an attorney, too.
All we're doing.
So we just don't want to get into, if you guys, if that's the route we want to go, then that's the route we will want to go.
I think you should not assume that there's any legal other than asking an opinion.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's just,
and that's fine, but I'm kind of wondering where you guys are going with this. Why don't you just let me do my lavender farm in the buildings? I can use it for agriculture. I can put lavender
Nick,
in
that's,
there to
that's where, that's might be where it ends up.
Okay, I'm just telling you guys, it's not going to be Michigan's largest shed builders, if that's what anyone's
The
concerned.
supervisor asked us to discuss this at this meeting.
Yes,
You
and-
wanted it to discuss at this meeting.
No, actually,
And
I
the reason this came up is because the supervisor actually got some
calls.
calls from people.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's
And I get-
following up.
Yeah, and that's fine. And I quite frankly think,
Yeah.
I can think of a lot more nuisances than a building that, they don't make noise, there's no lighting, and people like them. I mean, people from Elmont, so many, people from Elmont, people from Bruce Township. And guess what, guys? You know how many requests I get for agricultural buildings, chicken coops, horse stuff? This is agricultural too. I'm giving you enough teeth that I don't think you need to discuss with the attorney. If you want to, that's fine. I'm just trying to save you guys some money, that's all. If you guys are saying, Nick, you're totally out of line, but I think the Right to Farm Act covers me, but I'm trying to be reasonable with you guys.
Well, I don't think you're
Does that
hearing
make
we're
sense?
saying you are totally out of line. I
Okay,
think
thank you.
What you should be hearing is, we have an obligation to the township to.
Because a couple people,
No, well, I'm one of those people. I saw your ad, okay?
okay, and I just
So
read to you.
When I saw it, you know, hold on.
Okay,
I thought, this is totally against what he agreed to do. Let me think back a year and a half
Yeah.
or so.
well,
And so I did talk to Mike Philbrick, and he said, yeah, other people have. So it would be negligent on our part if we were getting questions from people
mhm,
and just said, well, no big deal.
mhm,
So all we're doing is saying we're gonna ask for an opinion,
okay.
and if the opinion is right on with you, I may come and buy one. But then again, I may not.
Well, you know, you're always welcome to talk to me.
Oh, I
Ed.
know.
And then quite frankly, since that year and another year, a lot
And the other
transpired.
side of it is, if we
Yeah.
get an opinion back that says no, we have an obligation to the rest of the citizens, and all we're doing is being, I'll call it cautious, careful, and complete.
Yeah, I can assure you that if you put this to a public comment, you're not gonna have more than 5 people complain about this. I can assure you that.
My question is, how many sheds do you have on the property now?
Right now, I think we have 18 or 19, and a couple of them have been sold, and I've told the distributor not to bring me any more.
Okay, my question is,
And the
if
reason,
this helped, would you reduce the amount and not go up to 18 again, if that
absolutely.
solves
I
some of the
do not want
complaints?
to, that is correct. I would not want to. And I'll tell you why. Even though it's in my best interest financially to have a lot on there, I want to concentrate on the lavender farm, and I understand this concern. And I also understand, because my son's a lawyer, that your lawyer can give you an opinion, and it's gonna cost you, not me, a bunch of headaches, and I wanna keep, look at, you guys, I brought a beautiful lavender farm to you guys. You guys don't
No,
wanna
just
mess with
maybe
the
it
lavender
would
farm.
help the situation if you worked together and you.
Absolutely, I am here,
You
yes.
agreed to reduce the amount, maybe that
Absolutely.
would help the situation.
Without a doubt. And I'm telling you, I did not want these amount on there. And here's another big reason why. People come out there to take pictures of the lavender farms. They don't want to see them damn sheds there. So they're screwing me on that, excuse me, they're messing me up on that revenue. I'm telling you, I told these guys, don't do it. And the guys, you could talk to they did it. And I was just furious. And I go, well, I'm going to get a call. And sure enough, a week later, I got a call.
Am I correct in understanding you use the sheds for lavender drying? Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Do you know what would be the minimum amount of sheds you would need to sustain your drying operation?
Yeah, right now, I think no more than 15,
Okay,
no
thank you.
more. Any other questions?
Nick, don't look at this that we're attacking you, we're just following up on something.
I understand.
Oh. And like I
No.
said, if it helps solve the problem, reduce the,
I know
If
you
that
guys
helps.
want to go home, but, I'm really glad I got a chance to talk to you guys. I watch every single meeting, and I find you guys very reasonable for the most part. I really do, and especially you, Mike. You always seem to be the man of reason.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
I just, but it's the truth.
Let me call
though.
Mike in the morning.
But it's the truth, though.
We
But it's the
outnumber
truth. But hey, just to remember when I first met you, here's how cool these guys were. Joe and Mike, I was buying this property, and, I had all sorts of ideas, and I go, man, I got to talk to these guys because this is a lot of money, and I got to see what I can do with it. I sit down with these guys, and they immediately met me before the closing and you didn't have to do that. And they met me, and they said, Nick, here's how it goes. I wasn't watching. Now I've learned so much more watching the meetings, understanding your mindset, because it's on Van Dyke, right? It's Van Dyke, just 40,000 cars a day. I'm surrounded by commercial property. There's commercial to the south of me. There's commercial to the north of me, which is Elmont Township. And Goikes is for all better. It's commercial. It's really a commercial piece. I hate to say it, guys, but I'm not going to push it. But it is, if any place in your township, what would be considered a commercial piece, a hard corner, it would be that. And not to mention, I'm surrounded by commercial. But I'm not pushing it. That's not where I want to go with this thing. I like to keep it just the way it is. And I want to be able to make a living and survive and keep it the way it is because I really love the lavender business. And the sheds do help to keep it, the lavender business, and not sell it to the next gas station owner that's come to me, which 2 of them already have. And a big food franchise, because I'm on a corner and we're in an area that people are looking at stuff. So, but I like what I do. I love people, and I enjoy making people happy.
Okay.
Okay, guys, I know you want to go home.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, that takes care of item G. Now, Number 11, the election of the vice chairman. Everyone here knows that Dan Walker, last meeting, told us that he was no longer going to be able to participate, actually 2 meetings ago. We had a meeting last month, but we only had 4 members because others were out, so we deferred it to this meeting. I've talked to everyone on the planning commission and asked for their interest in being vice chairman. And hopefully, the gentleman that said to me, yeah, I'll be willing to do it, because everyone else was saying, why don't you ask him? So anyway,
Congratulations, Rick.
Jared Vincent.
He's also
is-
the best dressed here today.
Yeah. He dressed up just for this event. Jared Vincent did say that he would be willing to do the vice chairman position. Still, after this meeting, I asked him again, are you sure? He said, yes, I'm willing. So with that, I would make a motion to appoint Jared Vincent to vice chairman of the planning commission.
Second.
My motion,
I'm sorry for being premature.
Rick's second. All in
Make sure he
favor,
doesn't
please
change
say
his mind.
aye.
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 I think that was everyone. Nay, and you can't talk. Nay, no one, so the motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think you'll do a great job. Okay, any comments? We don't have any committees that I can think of off the top of my head. Consultants, Joe, anything more?
Anything else now?
Commissioners, any comments, items you want to bring up?
I just have a quick question for Joe and Dana. Are our zoning maps updated with the most recent changes that we made?
Yes, well, the one in the book is anyway. Does the one, when did we put that one on the wall? Was that
One on the
before or
wall's
after?
still a little outdated since the end of Excalibur.
It should be brought to date with the,
Yeah, you had
with the
mentioned.
recent zoning changes,
Do
so
we-
people know that.
Yeah, well, do we do that after any change going forward?
I don't know, I would think we have to have some kind of standard, but anyway, question, is the ordinance online current?
Yes.
Okay.
The-
So
the
whatever
street-
zoning maps are not
Yeah.
current, we need to get current.
The street maps, I'd asked Joe, and that's waiting approval.
Yep.
To update the street map.
The ordinance too will need to be updated with the new industrial standards on the website.
That's right.
What's the effective date of that again?
It's
Is
15 days
it's
after
like-
the meeting, right, or something like that?
I'm thinking it's like early next week, so,
I thought it was 7, but maybe it's.
Oh,
yeah. So at any rate, I've got them working on updating that.
okay.
So, that will be uploaded as soon as it's ready.
Yeah. Any rough guess? Couple months, couple days?
Oh, a couple days.
Couple
Yeah,
years?
it's- yeah.
Couple days?
Yeah.
Okay, I would make the motion to adjourn unless someone else has comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? See you next time.